Stand by, please, guys. This is the ongoing technical issue of this switcher software giving me such an extremely difficult time. I am super pleased to welcome to the show. Boy, we're not getting our feed here the way we want it. Why is it always got to be so difficult? It's got a X on Vimeo. No good, no good, no good. Oh my gosh. Hang on, guys. Stay with me. You should have picture right now, but we are not yet there. So frustrating. Okay, I think we've got it. I believe we're live. I apologize for that. And of course, tonight we have a very special guest with us for the intelligence assessment, Mr. Larry Klayman, joining Kevin and I. Larry, so delighted to welcome you back for the second night in a row.
My pleasure.
Welcome, Larry.
Nice to see you, Kevin.
We're going to be talking tonight about the incredible corruption at the top of the FBI. And Larry, we wanted you to join us because both Kevin and I know that this is something that you've been pursuing doggedly for basically your entire career.
Yes, in fact, I was the Justice Department prosecutor and defense lawyer in the Antitrust Division. I'll break up AT&T. Before that, I transferred to the Antitrust Division's AT&T trial team because I saw a lot of political influence in other parts of that Justice Department. Ultimately, I left. I started my own law firm ultimately, and then, of course, Judicial Watch and then Freedom Watch. But I believe in the Justice Department, but it's become so highly corrupt and compromised that, frankly, something needs to be done very quickly about it. The first thing, getting rid of Jeff Sessions.
Right. And again, Kevin has also been a real breakthrough in terms of exposing corruption in our three-letter agencies, and it's really an interesting time because we're seeing all these hearings about social media, but of course without social media we couldn't be doing this. Kevin, what would you like to say before we get into your presentation tonight, or how would you want to handle it?
Well, I'm really glad that Larry could come on because we want to deal with what FBI senior management has been doing, and we also want to deal with the fact that Hillary Clinton has not been prosecuted, should have been prosecuted, and that's kind of a bit of a constitutional crisis for us. So we want to talk about those things this evening.
Yes, I was just changing my microphone, guys, so if I'm moving around, I'm not fleeing the scene of the crime, so to speak.
That's good to know. We wouldn't want you to flee. Now, one thing I'm going to do, because of course we always run Kevin's really amazing PowerPoint presentations, I want to make sure that you guys have the screen share so that we can follow along. Kevin, would you like to dive right into the PowerPoint, or how do we want to do it today?
Yeah, Jason, I'd like to do that. I've made it brief so we can have Larry on for as long as we can, but let's run through that because they kind of give a summary of what's going on and current events, and then we can go in and start discussing that.
Absolutely. And Larry, both you and Kevin should be able to see the PowerPoint on the screen share now. Kevin, why don't you take us through it, and then Larry can give us his commentary as you two both see fit.
You bet. Thank you, Jason. Let's get started. It's funny that Larry mentioned Attorney General Sessions. I think most of us are quite frustrated with Mr. Sessions to date. And I want to stress that this all began when Jeff Sessions recused himself from the investigation. As soon as he did that, it opened up this whole can of worms that we have now. Turned the case over to Rod Rosenstein. It resulted in the appointment of Mr. Mueller, despite the fact there was enough evidence already to indict Hillary Clinton. And Sessions played right into the hands of the coup plotters who had done that, accused him of that, Nunes of ethics violations and other things, setting up the coup, and Jeff Sessions fell right into their hands. And this opened the doors to the vicious attacks that we're seeing on the president now. Many of us have been calling for Sessions to have the dignity to submit his letter of resignation. He hasn't done that yet. As of today, we just found out that the DOJ has opened investigations on the false FISA warrant and everyone involved. So we'll see what that means. If it includes Comey, McCabe, and the others, we'll find out more after today. But I think that was just revealed today. So we'll see. But we're past time. We're over the bar for Attorney General Sessions to do something. Should have done something long ago. It's time for him to submit his letter of resignation. He's basically the one who started this entire mess. And so more about that later. I want to stress here, too, that the FBI agents in the field are patriotic people. They're good Americans. They're good law enforcement officers. I've worked with them extensively. I worked with a female agent on a case involving the CIA, and I would have her back anytime. Just absolutely outstanding. As a matter of fact, she was the first one that said, don't you think that don't you think the CIA is setting you up here? And turns out she was exactly right. I trained and qualified with FBI SWAT. FBI SWAT guys were awesome. These people are just following their orders. They're not the ones it's not their idea to break down the doors and enter people's places of residence. They're just following orders. The SWAT guys I work with were fantastic guys. I got them recognition from the agency, which is unheard of because two agencies are usually enemies. So I just want to stress that the FBI agents in the field are outstanding people. They protect our safety. I've worked with them several times, including in counterintelligence espionage cases, and they've just been fantastic. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're not talking about the field agents. We're talking about senior FBI management. And I know even the field agents are frustrated with their management. And I think some are even cheering us all on, hoping that they clean the rats out of the top. So it's important just to remember that. So,
yes, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I've had FBI agents as clients who higher ups, including Mueller, tried to drive out of the FBI because they wanted to investigate Saudi money laundering in the days leading up to 9/11. They then wanted to talk about that publicly through a book, and they were attempted to be drummed out and their security clearances removed. But I want to ask you a question, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no worries.
Why do you think that Sessions has buried his head in the sand and has been inert and now has basically become the darling of the left?
It's puzzling because I was giving Sessions the benefit of the doubt, having worked with the FBI at the field level and the kind of upper tier levels of the field agents. They're very thorough on the espionage cases we worked. Sometimes it took them months just to cross every T and dot every I on an investigation. So I was giving Sessions some rope on that, but it's past that time. You have to wonder what is keeping Jeff Sessions from doing this. One, has he been gotten to the point where he refuses to do this? Two, is he just a spineless coward? Three, is he just not competent enough for the position? Or has he been blackmailed? Something is withholding Attorney General Sessions from carrying out justice and carrying out the law. So
let me put it my 2 cents here, okay?
Sure,
Number one, he's a politician, okay? He doesn't want to ruffle feathers. He wants to have an exit strategy. In Washington, D.C., the Democrats and Republicans, it's like the National Football League, the American Conference, and the National Conference. He's part of this club. Number two, he's under investigation by Mueller for alleged collusion with the Russians. And he stupidly lied to Congress when he said he hadn't met with the Russian ambassador. Now, there was nothing wrong in meeting with the Russian ambassador, but the guy panicked and apparently lied to Congress under oath. So he's defensive about that. And he took a part in the firing of Comey. So he's also under investigation for alleged obstruction of justice. All of these are not criminal, but he's very reflexive. And it's not just, as Jason knows, his inaction in these matters, but he's allowed the political prosecution of Klayman Bundy to go on and on and on, as well as his sons and the other defendants. I've lost total respect for him. And, when I hear people say on Fox News and other places, I can't figure this out, okay? Now, anybody, and you've figured it out, Kevin, but anybody with any degree of common sense and an IQ over 80 can figure it out. And that's why this guy's got to go.
Yeah, Larry, that's right on target. The guy basically They got him from the very beginning. I think it was part of the soft coup. They got him to shut up and weakened his spine from the very, very beginning. And I think Jeff Sessions is covering for Jeff Sessions right now. Right. And I agree with you. He needs to go, either submit his letter of resignation. We've been calling for Trump to fire him. And they keep saying, well, if he does that, President Trump would be accused of obstruction of justice. They're going to do that anyway. No matter what President Trump does about Sessions, they're going to attack him. So just do it. Fire the guy. He's caused this whole mess to happen, and it's gotten way out of control.
I think at this point, the president has cover. And to say that we're going to do it after the midterms, I mean, that makes you look political. It makes you look manipulative. Do it now.
Right.
And have some cojones.
Good. Yeah, right. It's absolutely right, Larry. Fantastic points. People need to understand that Sessions is kind of the wall between justice and it happening. For the viewers, I want to give just an overview very quickly on this so-called FBI investigation at the senior levels. We remember that it was Peter Strzok who did both the Clinton email felonious investigation, let her walk, and it was also Peter Strzok who instigated the Trump investigation, the Trump-Russia investigation, and went after him like a pit bull. So Strzok at some point has got to face justice, in my opinion. And then we know that Comey and Strzok, I think Comey wrote the draft and Strzok actually drafted the memo exonerating Hillary Clinton months before she was even interviewed, which is unheard of. I know I did espionage cases with FBI agents. Of course, you never did that. You don't do that in any simple police investigation, for goodness sake. And we know that Loretta Lynch changed the criminal investigation, changed it from a criminal investigation to a quote-unquote matter, taking it out of the criminal arena. So even she was involved. And of course, Comey and Strzok changed extremely careless, which is a felony. They changed, gross negligence, which is a felony. They changed it to extreme carelessness, which takes it again out of the realm of criminal statutes. During Hillary's interview, there were no notes taken. There was no oath. The agents were ordered not to make any notes, knowing that those could probably be subpoenaed later. That's obstruction. Hillary Clinton lied to the FBI multiple times during that interview. She was never charged with lying to investigators like the Trump team was. And they had Cheryl Mills sit in, Hillary Clinton's attorney, longtime friend and attorney for her and Bill Clinton, actually granted Cheryl Mills immunity, allowed her to sit in on this FBI interview and control the interview, essentially, what Hillary could or could not say, when she should have been was part of the investigation herself. You can see this unbelievable setup by senior FBI management. And in another lecture, I talk about this. There are several senior FBI officials that need to be charged directly with obstruction of justice. So that's an overview of basically what we're seeing. We all know about the dossier. It's worth mentioning here because this is the silent coup. We know that Hillary Clinton instigated it through Perkins Coie, her legal firm. Basically, that was laundering money and probably a campaign violation. She got the information from Christopher Steele, a so-called former British MI6 agent. So she allowed a foreign agent to manipulate U.S. elections, another felony. And we know, of course, that the DNC was behind all of this. But the salient point here is the information came from paid Russian intelligence agents. From the beginning. McCain acted as the courier. It was disseminated to the CIA. John Brennan leaked it, calling it legitimate intelligence. And on it went up to this false FISA. So I just want people to see the level of coup and sophistication of planning that went into this thing to try to destroy Donald Trump because their chosen candidate was Hillary Clinton.
Well, very well said, Kevin. And it's in addition to that, you've got everything else that's out there. I mean, you've got the Comey situation, you've got the Mueller situation. I'm waiting for documents to be produced because he's been leaking grand jury material now for a year and a half. And Judge Emmett Sullivan, probably the only honest Democrat on the federal court in Washington, D.C., ordered that all this stuff be produced by September 4th. And as I predicted, just a few days before that was to happen, the Office of Special Counsel, the Justice Department, and the FBI discovered, quote unquote, a computer glitch. Okay, sound familiar? So I'm going back before Judge Sullivan. I want an evidentiary hearing on that quickly. And why did they just find a computer glitch? Because if this evidence of criminal grand jury leaks comes out, this could end Mueller really quickly. It is criminal, and it could be used in the upcoming Manafort trial next week. It could be used in other prosecutions to completely invalidate his investigation, notwithstanding the fact that I believe it's unconstitutional, as many others have said, including Mark Levin. I have actually different reasons why I think it's unconstitutional. We don't need to get into it here. But what really upsets me is that the president's lawyers, Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekulow, are just along for the ride. I mean, it looks like their motivation is to get on cable news, because they should be fighting back. They should be fighting back against Mueller. They should try to take this matter up the line in the court system and have a court declare his investigation null and void. They should be filing cases over the illegal surveillance of the Trump Tower and President Trump, his family, and colleagues. They should be suing the New York Times right now for defamation over this anonymous story, which I don't think there is an anonymous excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied, anonymous source here. I think it was made up by the New York Times. They need to fight back, because the president's being dragged along to the guillotine as if it was July 14th at the French Revolution. And I don't really think that his lawyers are serving him well. So it's not just Sessions. It's the people that have his so-called back are not doing the job.
Quick question, Larry. Sorry, Kevin. I just
No
wanted
worries.
to ask very briefly, during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, California Senator Kamala Harris was questioning Mr. Kavanaugh in a really combative way, asking him if he had communicated with anyone at this particular law firm about Mueller's investigation. And she described this law firm as Donald Trump's personal law firm. I had never heard of it before, but she didn't mention Jay Sekulow or Rudy Giuliani. She was referring to someone else, it seemed. Can you speak to that?
Was this a law firm in Miami, Florida, by any chance?
I think it was in D.C., because there was a whole kerfuffle during the hearing where, I mean, it was just so obvious, even to a layperson, that she was trying to position Kavanaugh, you know, to sort of trap him in his words. And Kevin has told us about how how interrogators have these techniques of sort of forcing someone to say something that they then say, ooh, you just lied. But the guy was saying, look, I don't know everybody who works at that law firm. Yes, I've spoken about Mueller. It's been in the news every day. Why don't you tell me the person you're thinking of, and I'll tell you if I spoke to them or not. And it was this bizarre back and forth of, like, you know, sort of lawyers pissing at each other.
Well, first of all, you know, look, I'm not a big fan of Kavanaugh. To me, he's the lesser of evils. We got to get him confirmed now, because time's running out before the Democrats really pile on. But the president could have come up with a better choice, I believe. Washington's very clubby. Judges do talk on the phone. I have judge friends. I you know, ruminate with them about what's going on and this and that. And it's possible that, in fact, he did have a conversation. But the reality is, as long as there was no case in front of him at the time, he's entitled to talk with lawyers in Washington, D.C. He can have lunch with them. He can do whatever he wants. So Kamala Harris, I mean, she's just a real piece of work. I could be a little more biting in my commentary of her. She and Cory Booker, okay, they see racism around every corner. They're going to use it. Booker tried to use it this morning. Yep. The suggestion that there's profiling. You know, what's wrong with profiling? The Israelis have done this for years. They've never had one El Al plane blow up. We've had several. And this is a ridiculous thing that they're promoting, because they want to create that racial division, and this is how they think they're going to be elected. Well, I'll tell you something. After Obama, I don't think Kamala Harris or Cory Booker have a chance in hell. And after Obama created all that racial division, the American people are sick of it.
Yeah. Well, there was something else that came out in True Pundit about Cory Booker and being involved in, we'll cover that after Kevin completes his PowerPoint, and we'll talk a bit about Cory Booker. I apologize for breaking it.
No, feel free to, as I'm going through this, that's the idea. Yeah,
it's beneficial, yeah.
It's extremely important. Trump's attorneys apparently are on the defensive trying to defend him. That is the wrong approach. They should be on the offensive, like Larry just said, suing these people, exposing these people, forcing Mueller to come out with discovery and unlocking some of the things that he's hiding himself. They got to stop hiding in the shadows and come out and start being aggressive, because that's how the dark left is. They're brutal and they're aggressive, and these guys need to come out and start hitting back.
You're right, and you can't be accused of obstruction of justice if you're using legal process.
Yeah, and they're so terrified of being accused of obstruction of justice. All that means is that Mueller and the senior FBI has got him. And until they realize that and break out of that, then they're just being manipulated like everyone else. So, and with Robert Mueller and Larry, I know you know probably a lot more about this, but remember Robert Mueller going back to just after 9/11. He's the one that instituted national security letters where they can come into your employment, demand all your financial and personal records, then threaten your supervisor with prison if he tells you or anyone else about it. He instigated the warrantless searches program and went to testify before Congress. They asked him how many times the FBI had done that. First, he said 47. They came back with some more evidence. Then I think he got up to a few hundred. Finally, I think of the fourth time, they said, Director Mueller, we have evidence that it was several thousand times that you broke into an American's house without a warrant. They got him up to 4,000 warrantless entries. And finally, his last comment was, I don't remember. Pardon me, Mr. Director, you don't remember a massive violation of the constitutional Fourth Amendment? So that's Robert Mueller from the beginning. One of the things I stress quite a bit is Robert Mueller was doing a counterintelligence investigation of Russian nuclear officials during the time that Uranium One happened, and Hillary Clinton got $145 million into her presidential campaign by a Russian nuclear corporation, and Mueller left it all alone. Didn't even bother with it. Hillary Clinton clearly was being targeted by Russian intelligence, and Mueller was conducting a counterintelligence investigation of the Russians at the same time and did absolutely nothing about it. Not only that, he signed off on the transfer of the uranium. So he's not the choir boy everybody is trying to make him out to be. Then we go all the way back to HSBC, a CIA money laundering bank. They were caught criminally laundering money from major drug cartels in South America and some terrorist organizations. Mueller investigated that. Some people should have gone to jail. He put, guess who, James Comey on the board of directors of HSBC. No one was charged. HSBC got a slap on the wrist of a fine compared to their revenue. It was nothing. And so Mueller covered up a criminal money laundering investigation. You wonder who he was connected to when he did that. We can conjecture that. But you can see that I put the violations of Title 18 USC there in each one of these cases that people can read from these slides. And regarding, lastly, the special counsel guidelines, Larry, as you know better than I, they have got to be narrowly focused on the exact crime, and the special counsel is not to depart from that crime, in this case, Russia collusion. That train has left the rails. He is all over the place, investigating and charging people what is essentially tax evasion and should have been handled by the IRS. He has left collusion. He has left the regulations, the rules for special counsel, and he is off the rail.
Excuse me for interjecting, but
crime.
That's what I was going to say. Larry, you've told me many times it's not even a crime.
It's well accepted. This is a counterintelligence investigation, and there is no crime. It's in search of a crime, and that's improper. And, consequently, that's why Trump needs to legally challenge the authority of Robert Mueller. Now, Jerry Corsi, who I know quite well, he's a good guy. He is before the grand jury apparently today. And I was hoping that Jerry would challenge the subpoena that was issued to him. They're looking for information about Roger Stone, because that's one way you can take it up the line to get a court to rule that the investigation of Mueller is void, invalid. It goes beyond his authority. And in addition to that, there's another individual by the name of Andrew Miller, I believe it was, who also is an associate of Roger Stone. It's been reported recently that he's flipped. I don't know if that's the case or not. So somebody needs to come forward to challenge Mueller, to have standing, to get a court to rule that he has no authority to do what he's doing. And the president does have standing. I mean, he's been illegally wiretapped and surveilled.
Wow.
And that's one way to get into it, as you pointed out, Kevin.
You know, Larry, I
Yeah,
was speaking
well
to
said.
Dr. Corsi yesterday, and if I'm not mistaken, he isn't going to the hearing until tomorrow. Perhaps I should call him and share this information with him.
Yeah, I talked to him too. In fact, I've lost track of time, guys. I've been working so hard. For some reason, I thought today was Friday.
Yes, tomorrow is when Dr. Corsi will be
Right.
speaking with the special counsel.
All days seem the same these days. I'm working around the clock.
Been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Robert Mueller's got some answering to do, and you made a really important point, Larry, is that they're conducting this as a counterintelligence investigation, not a criminal. Now, when you're conducting a counterintelligence investigation, you're not bound by the same criminal statutes of investigation as you would be if you were doing a criminal investigation. You have all kinds of latitude, like planning Stephen Halper as an informant, a longtime CIA asset, as an informant in the Trump campaign. That would be illegal, that would be criminal, but since it's counterintelligence, they got away with it, even though they assigned attorneys who were not in counterintelligence. So that's a very, very important point, Larry, that since this is a CI investigation, they can get away with all kinds of things. They need to be sued, they need to be cited and brought back on the rails of a criminal investigation. And if it's not, then some of these people need to be charged, and some of these people need to be questioned by someone, if we ever get an attorney general that grows a spine. But someone has got to do this, whether we have the November 6th elections or not. It's got to be done. Before or after is irrelevant, because they're trying to destroy this president.
Well, as you may know, Kevin, you've lived almost as long as I have. We haven't had an attorney general who either had a spine or was honest for decades. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm also talking about the Bush administration. I mean,
Right.
Gonzalez was a disgrace. I mean, they all were.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that there's no leadership at the Department of Justice. They've got a bunch of politicians running it. And when you get into these political scandals, they just take an exit stage left. And that's why we need to take action. We have citizens' grand juries, as you may know, that we're cranking up, which is legal. You know, Justice Scalia said that the grand jury belongs to the American people. We need to bring about justice ourselves, but we can also use civil court process. You know, and that's how I made my name at Judicial Watch and now at Freedom Watch, to bring about hard-hitting lawsuits. Fortunately, the last 3 cases I filed in D.C. wound up in front of either Trump-appointed judges or Republican judges, so hopefully we'll get a fair shake. We certainly don't get them with the Obama and Clinton appointees. They're uniformly, with the exception of Emmett Sullivan, political hacks over there. I know you're not supposed to say that if you're a lawyer, but I got to say it straight up. And that's what the president says. That's why I love him so much, because we've been living in a dream world over the state of the judiciary and the legal system in general. It is completely broken down, and it no longer represents the American people, with some exceptions.
Well said, Larry. It's not the Department of Justice like it's supposed to be, without a doubt. When Congress created it, they've left that completely because of politics, which essentially is corruption. And Jason had mentioned earlier, having worked with the FBI and seen a lot of FBI cases, Martha Stewart being the kind of the poster lady. If the FBI can't find evidence to charge the person based on the investigation or the crime, typically they'll box them into a corner and get them to make statements that do not match each other, or that conflict each other, and then they go ahead and they charge them with the old FBI entrapment technique of making false statements. They did it with Flynn, they did it with Manafort, they did it with Rick Gates, and they did it with Papadopoulos. That's all they got Papadopoulos on, was making false statements to the FBI. But then along comes Andrew McCabe, who lied under oath 4 times, but the FBI, after its investigation, comes out and says, well, he just demonstrated lack of candor, when he did the same thing as these other people or worse. It shows you the corruption at these levels of the FBI. And I know from the FBI culture that they will protect their own, and they will protect the FBI, even if it comes down leaking things to the press, which they did in a CIA espionage case we were working that they blundered. They leaked that case, I think it was to the Washington Post, without regard to the fact the case was top secret. So they'll do that. And there's a saying, the FBI always gets their man, and the subtitle would be, even if it's illegal to do it. So people need to understand that they've gotten kind of out of their purview, and at the upper levels, and I know the agents hate this, they have departed from justice itself. And you remember the Manafort raid, a no-knock search, pre-dawn, about 4 a.m. Manafort and his wife are in bed. They break down the door. Now, could you imagine if you're sleeping, because my wife and I have talked about this, could you imagine if you're sleeping in your house, somebody batters your door open dressed dark, in dark clothing, and comes in with guns, and you're woken up completely surprised? The question is, and I have people asking me this, what do you do? Well, that's a good question, because if you reach for a gun, you've just given them an excuse to kill you. So they did that with Manafort. They searched his wife, patted her down while she was laying in bed, spent several hours there, and then once they arrested Manafort, they put him in solitary confinement, for goodness sake, for tax evasion and business loans. They ruined his entire life. Unless something is done, he's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. And they have completely ruined his family when it has absolutely nothing to do with Russia collusion. And Mueller got off the rails like a mad dog, appointing his top agent, Weissman, who was responsible for the death of Arthur Anderson and the loss of 80,000 jobs. The guy's a bulldog. So this is way out of justice, way out of his purview, way out of what the FBI should be doing. And these no-knock searches are dangerous. One guy came out when they busted the door down with a golf club, an older fellow, and they shot him dead.
Wow.
So just another example. It's happened several times. Another guy they shot dead, and they left him laying on the floor in the house for 4 hours before they even went in to check. He was already dead, but to check how he was, they kept him out of there for 4 hours. So this is outrageous. And
just a quick point, if I may, guys. You've raised some really interesting things there, Kevin, because just the simple fact of patting down the guy's wife while she's in bed, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I know each of us have had the unfortunate circumstance of having gone through a divorce. Something like that happens to your wife, that is not good for your marriage. So that's a real big deal. But I had a personal conversation with Robin Gritz just yesterday about all of these no-knock raids, and she told me in some detail that for all the raids that she was involved in, and the standard practice for the FBI is to very, very carefully plan these raids to avoid children, to do it in such a way that it will not provoke a violent response. Because as you point out, Kevin, if somebody bashes in your door and you have a gun, if you're exercising your Second Amendment rights, your response could be to bring out a gun. And the FBI doesn't just do this unless they want an opportunity to kill the person. Thomas Paine, Michael Moore has spoken about that as well.
Yes, and the feds do have a master key. A lot of times they can just bypass knocking the door down with a master key. And in terms of the pressure on your spouse, it is unbearable. It broke our marriage up. My wife just could not have. They broke into our house twice, and we caught them on tape. And you can go to my website, and I've got some of the documents proving that. They broke into our house and painted a chemical on the ceiling because we were all sick. So they'll do it. And of course, the CIA doing that is particularly egregious because they don't have a charter supposedly within the U.S. So yeah, I hope that's true, because it's so dangerous. Kevin, when you do a no-knock search on someone's house.
Yeah, do you remember Notre Trulock? He was the head of investigation at the Energy Department. He's the one that uncovered that Wen Ho Lee, the Chinese scientist at Los Alamos, had made off with all of our nuclear codes. And Notre tried to get the FBI to do something. They hesitated. They did nothing. And he became critical. He started writing a book. Well, under Louis Freeh, they busted into his house. They illegally went into his computer without a warrant. They came back the next week and gun-butted his dog. He found his dog, lying on the ground bloody. Fortunately, the dog survived. And I brought a lawsuit against Louis Freeh in Virginia. And in fact, at the Fourth Circuit level, the Fourth Circuit said that I could proceed with that lawsuit in several respects. After I left Judicial Watch, I don't know what they did in litigating that it didn't go forward. But this is the conduct of our law enforcement agencies. And this was directed by Louis Freeh, just like Mueller is directing these things. It's like Comey directed these things, and it's out of control. And I'm just so disgusted at the whole Washington scene. Every time I go there, I feel like there's this evil cloud hanging over the entire city. And frankly, there are very few people there that I would trust. Just Royce Lamberth is one of them, the judge. And there's a story about that Jason knows about with a whistleblower client that I had, and James Comey, how he buried an investigation of widespread mass surveillance after Snowden came out. It was even worse than what Snowden was talking about, and lured him into producing all of this information, hard drives and 600 million pages of documents, and just took it off the market. And you had two special agents who interviewed my client under oath about what went on, videoed it, and they just buried it. And you know, it's us against the state. That's right. We are enemies of the quote state.
That's right.
At this point, you know, I think we're in a revolutionary mode. I don't know that it's ever going to be solved in the courts or any place else. And I hope, and I'm trying to prevent, you know, a violent eruption. But if they impeach the president, if Trump gets impeached as a result of Mueller's upcoming impeachment report, I don't advocate this, but you can expect militias and everybody else to be in the streets. This country is going to explode.
Larry, let me keep you on Louis Freeh for just a second, because of course he was the FBI director that Bill Clinton brought in after he summarily dismissed William Sessions the day before Vince Foster was discovered dead in Fort Marcy Park. Why did Louis Freeh not jump on that and take up the investigation of the Vince Foster death, as he should have?
It wasn't politically correct to look into the Vince Foster death. Why did Ken Starr and Robert Ray, then independent counsel, take a dive on that? Why did Kavanaugh take a dive on that? Okay, he wanted to be someday Supreme Court justice. That's why he took a dive on it. They all took a dive. Now look, whether Vince Foster either was killed or committed suicide, there had to be an underlying reason for either. No one ever uncovered that. It's a lot like, in a bigger way, what went on with Stephen Paddock in Las Vegas, where that obviously has been covered up. So the American people have lost total faith in our justice system, and there are a few good apples out there. Judge Lamberth, a few others on the federal court. But I don't know of anybody inside of the FBI or the Department of Justice at a high level that is willing to exercise their authority on behalf of the American people anymore. In fact, they're working against the American people.
You're right, Larry, and that's the essence of corruption. And you made a good point, too. I get messages every single day from people that are saying, we're fed up with this. This is tyranny. We want this stopped. What can we do? We're ready to do something. And there are simple, peaceful ways to do it. But there are a lot of people out there that are very, very upset at what's going on with this coup against the president. And you liken it to poking a bear. There's a huge bear out there, the millions that got Trump elected and millions more that have since joined. And if they impeach this president, we are going to see some fireworks.
Tyranny was right about that. Maybe the one thing he's right about. He said this country is going to explode. It will explode. Believe me.
Yes. Yeah. It's a confrontation that's been brewing for decades, and it's finally coming out into full view. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it's not going to be pretty either way. And the next couple of years are going to be really, really ugly. So that's absolutely right. Now, I want to get into something that everybody's been asking me about constantly, and that is Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Charles Ortel, and I'd recommend, excuse me, that was a farm implement. Sundays with Charles. Jason sits down with Charles Ortel, and they talk about the Clinton charity fraud, and Charles is very, very good, being from the financial sector, at analyzing every fraud and every criminal practice by the Clinton Foundation. What is important, at least to note tonight, is that the DOJ leadership at the time of the Clinton charity fraud investigation was none other than Comey and Mr. Mueller. And they let that charity fraud investigation go. They prosecuted no one. They ignored some serious crimes, $57.1 or something million deposit into a post office box. I think it was in Maryland. No accounting for taxes, and on and on and on it goes. There's one thing. Then there's this. We all know about Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information, multiple violations of the espionage statutes, and I've got all the Title 18 USC statutes listed right here that she has violated multiple felonies, mishandling classified information. Now we know that every one of her emails was hacked and sent directly to China. She lied under oath multiple times. She destroyed subpoena emails, bleached bit the hard drives, smashed the BlackBerry phones, removed the SIM cards, obstruction of justice, big time. And then, of course, we've got espionage, which if they start investigating that, I think they're going to see a very ugly animal. So this woman has created multiple serious felonies and violations of the federal statute, Title 18, and nothing was done about it. That's the shocking part. We look at I'm going to the next slide here. I'm about to wrap up. This so-called dossier, which led to filing the false affidavit against Carter Page, and I understand an investigation has just opened up on that. I hope so. But the people behind filing this false affidavit, and these are the people that should be investigated. James Comey signed off on it. Andrew McCabe signed off on it. Sally Yates signed off on it, hence her immediate rebellion as soon as Trump was elected. Dana Bonte signed off on it, and John Brennan agreed with it too. And you can see over to the right of the slide there all of the Title 18 USC violations that these people committed in filing, lying on FISA affidavits, and of course, obstruction of justice. What I'm showing people here is these are the federal violations, the crimes, the felonies that these people have committed. There's plenty of evidence out there that they did this, and nothing has been done. So, as I wind it up here, because I get this all the time. You guys probably do too. How do Americans find justice in this mess? And at the center of all this corruption and felonious activity, you have one woman, and that's Hillary Rodham Clinton. Connected to all these players you can see on the screen, Bruce Orr and his wife, I understand now under investigation for helping craft the dossier. You got McCabe, you got Strzok, you got Brennan, you got the rest of them all involved in protecting this woman and trying to get her as president of the United States. Over here, you can see PDB. That's the Presidential Daily Brief, which when I was on the director's staff, that's something that we handled. The Presidential Daily Brief is a required briefing to the president regarding any open NSA, CIA, FBI espionage case. Every single day, the president has to be updated on that. So Barack Obama knew about every single thing involved in the actions of these people. Everything. Maybe someday it'll get to him because it should. He was aware of all of this.
Well, so, you know what, Kevin, I agree with you, but I don't think that the Justice Department, I don't care what investigation they opened it into Andrew McCabe or Peter Strzok or Lisa Page, it's going to be buried. That's the way it works because both sides protect each other. You remember when George W. Bush was elected in 2000, I went to John Ashcroft, who was the Attorney General. I said, let's settle the cases that we have, Filegate, Travelgate, dealing with Chinagate, and all that other stuff. They wouldn't settle it. And you know why they wouldn't settle it? In the cases, they continued to use the same deep state Democrat defense lawyers in the federal programs branch, because there by the grace of God go thee. Is that when we lose control of the executive branch, we want the Democrats to protect us. And then we'll do the same thing for them. It's not going anywhere. And that's why, I have been tooting my own horn. And I said, let's put some pressure on the president to appoint me special counsel, because frankly, and honestly, I honestly believe this. I'm not trying to be conceited or a narcissist or anything else, is that there's no other lawyer in this country that'll go the distance and actually do it, because every other lawyer that I know of wants to keep their hand in the till and be part of this Washington establishment. And that's what we're dealing with. We haven't seen justice, for 40 years. I'm not sure we saw it before that with regard to the higher-ups in Washington, D.C. And that's why what you're doing is extremely valuable in educating the American people. I do the same thing. I have a radio show. I'd like to have you and Jason on there soon, is that it's just entertainment. That's all it's become. Fox News has become entertainment. They boost ratings, they get advertising dollars, but nothing ever happens. And no one goes on Fox News that actually says I'm going to do anything. It's just they're reporting, I've discovered this, I got new documents, I did this, I did that. But there's no action. And the American people are fed up. So I agree with everything you've said, but I don't believe the Justice Department is conducting any bona fide investigation of any of these criminals.
I think you're right, Larry, and Jason would agree, at least so far that I've seen, you're the only lawyer that has the guts to really investigate this stuff. The rest of them are cowering behind their political careers, their retirements, and other things, and you're the kind of person we need in there. It's about blooming time And I hope that gets to Trump somehow.
Well, we're
Yeah,
hopeful that Larry's
petition. Yeah.
we're hopeful that Larry's citizens grand juries will gain some traction, and I'm going to do everything I can to cover that and get the word out, because if that can really do something, perhaps this is a tool that can be used to further ensure justice in some of these insane cases.
Absolutely.
We will use every tool that we have, but now is the time for action, not talk. You know, take a page from Winston Churchill in World War II, whose bust, by the way, was sent back to England by Obama as one of his first acts. But he had to rally the troops in Great Britain. They wanted to do nothing. They wanted to make peace with Hitler. He said, no, victory at all costs. And that's what we've got to do. I'm not advocating violence or anything like that, but we have to use whatever tool we have legally and peacefully to get justice here, to restore the country. Otherwise, we are going to have a violent revolution, and regrettably, I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, Larry, I think you're right. You know, this has come to the point where the only solution is for American citizens, we the people, to finally stand up and say enough is enough to this corruption. And citizens' grand juries are an outstanding idea. That's a good civil war to keep what is going to happen from happening if they impeach this president or go any farther with this corruption. It's a very serious matter, and it's going to get even more serious as we go on. So the American people, it's time for the American people to stand up and make their voice heard through citizens' grand juries. I think people should be protesting in Washington, maybe a million-man-woman Patriot Day or something, where they march up Constitution Avenue and demand justice. But people have got to do something, or we're going to lose our Constitution. We are already in under a post-constitutional government. People need to stand up, and they need to do it now, because it's slipping away quickly.
It is. And, you know, again, you and I are not going to be the one that stokes the flames of a violent revolution, but we have to warn people that that's where we're going unless they do rise up. And, you know, I did an event, it was about 5 years ago in Washington. It was called Reclaim America, and it was cold. I did it in November, and I was hoping to get more people to come, but, you know, it's expensive to go to Washington, and people felt threatened during Obama in terms of what could happen to them. But we need to summon that courage. Our founding fathers had, you know, they risked their lives, they risked their fortunes, and they pledged their sacred honor to found a new nation. We just can't sit around talking on cable news about, gee, what new information we got today. You know, I'm just sick of it, and we need action. And I hope people will sign our petition at Freedom Watch, at freedomwatchusa.org, to have me appointed special counsel, signed to join our Justice League for the citizens' grand juries. We welcome you, Kevin, to play a role in that, and Jason, and everybody. It's not a Larry Klayman show, even though I'm wearing a Superman outfit there for fun. But I certainly couldn't fit into Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman outfit. So I decided I'd wear that. And but the American people are the superheroes. It's not me.
Right.
We need to rise up collectively.
Right. That's right.
Well, it's a powerful presentation that you've just shown us, Kevin. I think everyone is really concerned about this, and we're feeling, I mean, powerless to say the least. I mean, it's an unprecedented situation that we're in. So we've got these citizens' grand juries, of course. We've got Larry really pushing to become the special counsel. But I mean, again, it seems that President Trump is not taking the proper steps. Larry, what can we do as members of this crowdsourced community to help get your message to President Trump? Why is Lionel able to go sit and meet with President Trump and someone like you is unable to do that? How could we facilitate that?
Who's Lionel?
Exactly.
Right. Now, I didn't mean it an insult. I'm not sure who you're referring to, but I think people need to be writing the White House. They need to be tweeting. They need to be getting on Facebook. They need to tell the president, wake up, snap out of it. Remember that movie, Moonstruck, with Cher and who was the actor?
Cage. Forget. Nicolas Cage.
Right? He says, I'm in love with you, and she slaps him, and she says, snap out of it. Okay. Someone needs to, in a nice way, slap the president and say, look, stop the tweeting. Stop listening to Giuliani and Sekulow. I mean, they're nice people, but they're not criminal defense lawyers. I don't think Rudy has tried a case in 50 years. And, listen to your own instincts here, guy, because you have great instincts. And
now,
put somebody in there who will do the job and get it done quickly. He can appoint a special counsel. He doesn't have to go through the Justice Department. The president's the head of the Justice Department. He's the head of the executive branch. So start using your authority, because, frankly, he's hanging by a thread right now.
Yeah. Now, gentlemen, along the lines of our discussion tonight, it just came out only a few hours ago on True Pundit that there actually has been a grand jury impaneled. A secret grand jury is underway, and they're investigating FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. So that seems promising.
Let me flip in here, okay?
Sure.
This is a typical Washington scam, okay? The higher-ups, the people at the high level, are never held accountable, Democrat or Republican. What they do is they burn people at the middle and lower level. And as much as I think that McCabe is a dishonest crook and a criminal, he's becoming the lightning rod to take the fire away from the Hillary Clintons, the James Comeys, the Robert Muellers, the John Brennans, the James Clappers, and others. So, yeah, they've got to have a scalp. So they're going to have McCabe. And that'll be their justification for doing nothing on any other front. And that's the way it works. Look at what they did with Scooter Libby during the Bush administration. They made him the fall guy rather than Dick Cheney, or rather than the president himself. I don't think they did anything wrong with Valerie Plame, but they had to get some scalp, so they got Scooter Libby. And it's not the first time this has happened in Washington. It's a technique.
True.
Well, Kevin,
I mean,
what do you think?
Who cares about Andrew McCabe? Okay, I care about the people that directed Andrew McCabe. I care about the people at the top. They're the ones that need to be held accountable. I mean,
Larry,
he does too.
We've heard that the deputy director of some of these agencies are the guys that actually carry out the work. Is McCabe really not significant?
He's significant insofar as he was taking orders from Comey and Loretta Lynch and the others. I'm not saying he shouldn't be held accountable, but don't stop with him. I didn't mean, I spoke loosely. Who cares? Yes, we do care. But to me, it's another example of our dual system of justice, that a middle-level official is going to be burned at the stake when the higher-ups walk off scot-free, stuffing money into their pockets like Hillary Clinton continues to do.
And you know, Larry, people who are chatting with us live here on Discord are concerned about secret grand juries, secret courts, secret hearings. Is this at all anomalous to have a secret grand jury for something like this? Or is that the way it goes?
Most grand juries are secret unless you leak. Notice that they haven't leaked this one because the deep state doesn't want this out. Yeah, I mean, grand juries are not public proceedings. They're held behind closed doors. And the information and evidence that's obtained is not to be released by the prosecutor. Right. Now, that's the way it works under Justice Department rules. And I will do it differently with the citizens' grand juries. I'm going to try to have them televised so people can see what's going on.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And you guys know that I am very opposed to the abuse of secrecy from our government. That's been there, not a shield, a weapon to silence whistleblowers and others using classification and tyrannized secrecy. And as I've said before, every single American should question when the government says something is secret or it blacks out documents that involve the American people. Everyone should question that redaction, question that blackout, and secrecy is always used as a defense to shut down any investigation of especially what the executive branch and the Department of Justice and the CIA and the NSA are doing.
Yeah, you know, let me make a quick comment about the Kavanaugh hearings today. I'm looking at it, and you see the Democrats grandstanding. You see Cory Booker and Kamala Harris and the rest of them maneuvering to run for president like they're a great hero. Senator Booker says, well, I'm going to release these documents about Kavanaugh when he was at the Bush White House. I don't care if I'm expelled from the Senate. That would never happen. You know that's not going to happen.
But he's making himself this sacrificial lamb, like, oh, look at what a hero he is, willing to give up his Senate seat. He's basically saying, because I'm an African-American, I'm daring you to do it because I'll call you a racist if you do it. But here's the bottom line, is that why didn't the Republicans release all this stuff initially? I mean, what's the game here, okay? And the American people are fed up with the game in both parties. And let the information come out. Lay it on the table. And they were fundamentally right. There was nothing classified about this information. So
this is the way of doing things in Washington. The club, Democrat and Republican establishments protect themselves. And Mueller, he's a product of both the Republican and Democrat establishments that want to see President Trump destroyed, gone, and buried. And he works for both sides.
That's right.
Yeah. I want to remind people that Larry's written a book called Whores, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment. It's a really impressive and interesting story of Larry's experiences in Washington, D.C., fighting the swamp from the inside as a part of the Department of Justice. And of course, it's available on Amazon.com. But Larry, where can people buy it from a retailer that's not controlled by the CIA?
Well, I don't know where they can buy it from that. I think WorldNet Daily has a lot of the books left.
There we go.
WND.com. Also, I've taken all of my columns over the years. I have a 4-volume set and counting called Essays of a Mad Man. Okay? And you can buy that at Judicial Watch. And it really brings my whores book up to date. When I get time, I'm going to write a book, Whores, They're Back. Okay?
Now, wait a minute. Are people buying that at Judicial Watch, or they're buying it at freedomwatchusa.org?
Freedomwatchusa.org. You'll see up on our website you can buy not just Whores. You have to buy that off of Amazon because, frankly, I'm out of copies at this point. But my new 4-volume work, which are the columns that I've written throughout the years from the Clinton administration forward, which really extends my autobiography, Whores, and what I do. You can buy that on our website at freedomwatchusa.org with a contribution over $100. I mean, we'll give it to you for free. And it really chronicles how the corruption has gotten worse. You know, one of the analogies, I know we're running out of time, that I used in the Whores book is that at one point, the actual prostitutes, I'm not talking about political or media prostitutes and whores, but the ones that used to frequent 14th Street, in fact, they're still there, the D.C. police herded them over the 14th Street Bridge into Virginia, figuring they could get rid of them, right, and let Virginia deal with it. Well, they sauntered back over the bridge and came back to D.C. where they felt most comfortable. And I think the same thing is true of the political and media whores that infest that city.
Wow.
Well said.
Larry, it's always great to have you on. Of course, people probably recall that our first meeting with you and Kevin was basically shut down by a lightning storm that blew out the hotel and destroyed my laptop. But I'm glad we were uninterrupted on this one. I do want to remind people to go and visit fortheloveoffreedom.net. That is Kevin Shipp's website, and you can purchase his book, From the Company of Shadows. It's also a fascinating book, and Kevin has built a code into the book. If you order it directly from Kevin's website, you're going to get a signed copy as well as a decoder that allows you to reveal the information that's been illegally redacted by the CIA. It was so clever of Kevin to get that information in there for people to be able to see and further expose the deep state. We've got so much more to talk about, but we are running out of time. We've got Jason Chaffetz coming out today and acknowledging the deep state. It really seems like there is a crescendo building here to almost a fever pitch. Before we wrap it up for the night, can each of you guys leave us with a thought relative to all this FBI corruption and what we might expect to see next?
Go ahead, Larry.
Well, my same message, which I just basically made, is that this is not new, but it's metastasized. It's gotten much worse. We don't have people of the caliber of our founding fathers anymore running our government. You know, it was Jefferson who said we need to have a revolution every other generation, that we would have to spill blood, as a matter of fact. I don't advocate that. So people need to rise up. They need to support what I'm doing, what Kevin's doing. The citizens' grand juries, I hope you guys will be witnesses, because, you know, you can be experts. You are experts. We're going to have fact witnesses too. But we all need to rise up, and we need to do whatever we can. And we just can't sit there and watch cable news with the latest documents that have been revealed. What good are documents if you don't take action? And that's what we're trying to do right now.
And thank you for that, Larry. I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and I definitely want people to go to freedomwatchusa.org and support the effort, support the citizens' grand juries, sign the petition to get Mueller booted out and have Larry come in as a special counsel to investigate the Mueller investigation. It's a travesty.
Absolutely.
And what Kevin's doing is extremely important too. Kevin, why don't you close it out? This was your show.
Oh no, that's why I wanted to have you on, because you have such courage and you're a real hero and a point man in this. I would echo that. I would just ask people to go to Freedom Watch and support Larry. Out of all the people I've talked to over the last 2 years, Larry is the only one that is actually taking action and getting American citizens to take action. No one else is doing anything similar. I'd encourage people to go to Freedom Watch and sign the petition and stay with Larry, because he's the only person I've seen so far that has not only the spine but also the legal know-how to do these things, and also bring the American people in to stand with him en masse, because that's the only way this is going to be solved, the only way. And Larry is bringing that together. So I just want to give kudos to him and encourage people to go to his site.
Absolutely. I feel like we're on the cusp of something historic, Larry, and I'm really excited about what you're doing and proud to be involved to the extent that I'm able. I want to thank both of you for joining me tonight here on the Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp. Of course, we're only on Patreon with this very special exclusive broadcast, so I want to thank all the Patreon sponsors who are supporting Crowdsource the Truth at patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. And if people are watching on the Crowdsource the Truth Patreon page, I want to encourage people to go to patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp with 2 P's. That's very important. And Larry, I think we should get you onto Patreon as well. We all need to rely on these methods of monetizing, because we see how Alex Jones is being deplatformed and these voices of dissent are being pushed out of the conversation. So we want to stop that from happening. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Jason.
Looks forward to speaking to you both very soon. And thanks everyone for watching. I will see you tomorrow for Reverse Engineering Crime Scene Investigations with David Hawkins. Thanks for watching, everybody.